Aloha again from Hawaii. I've got one more week here before I'm back to California, so I figured I'd take a nice little evening walk. I've got a quick one today. Our pal Mauricio submitted a question. He wanted to know how much typical profit can be seen on an independent film, especially a movie that doesn't have name talent. Just to recap for people who don't know yet, the typical promise is made to an investor on a film, whether it's big or small. If you're in an equity position, they promise that you're going to get your principal back plus 20% return. And then after your 20%, you get 50% of the profits for the life of the film. Now, as far as how much profit is actually going to be yielded, that entirely depends on how much money you've spent on your movie. So if you spent $500,000 on a movie with no name talent, you're going to lose your money. You need to be in a situation where you're spending $100,000, maximum $150,000 these days, and you're really wanting to get below six figures if you don't have any name or recognizable talent. So to get into the numbers, because I think that's what Mauricio is hoping for, if you've got a film that's being shot with no name talent, but it's in a competitive genre, let's say it's thriller or horror, you obviously don't have much room for special effects or even that many practical effects. If it's really well done, still with no name talent, you may end up in a situation where you're only going to have rev share offers on the table, meaning no distributors, let's say for North America, are going to give you money up front. They're just going to say, well, we're going to give you this percentage of gross, and that's it. So without an advance, now you and your investors are in a position where you have to wait for the movie to not only be released, but then for those first quarterly reports to come in for you to start making money. So to give you an idea, on a small film, I don't want to name names on this one. A friend of mine produced it, and I know that she spent a bit more than she should have. But there's a film that was, I want to say, about $300,000, $400,000. It had one recognizable face, no real name talent, and that sold for a $5,000 MG for North America. And the outlook for her is anywhere from an additional $50,000 to a high of $150,000 for her and her investors to receive over the course of the next 5 years. It's a long time to be waiting for that kind of money. So if the same movie was done for $100,000, then she might be recouping in 2 years, maybe a year and a half on the quick end. And then as far as how much profit's going to be made, that really just depends on how audiences respond to that one, because again, with such a low minimum guarantee, you're not going to see very large acquisition prices in the foreign market. So she's really going to have to be waiting for that film to perform globally before we know what it looks like. But I can tell you in that instance, she's not likely to see her money back for quite some time. Now, if you have a movie that's being done for, let's say, $40,000 or $35,000, and I've actually been catching wind from some filmmaker friends of mine that are shooting like a slate of movies right now for $35,000 a pop, and they're strong genres, they're horror films, they're thriller films, they're horror thriller films. Those guys are probably going to recoup just on domestic, and so everything that's sold in foreign is really just going to be a cherry on top. So I guess to answer the question once more, or to recap, oh man, it's uphill. It's killing me right now. So to recap, if you're only spending, let's say, $100,000 or less, and you've got a competitive genre, you've got a pretty decent shot at recouping and generating some kind of return within the first 12 months of the release of the film with no name talent. But let's talk real quick about getting in some name talent, because I know I see a lot of movies being shot for well over $100,000 with no names, and I don't know how necessary that is. So If you are in a situation where you can really guerrilla shoot it for, let's say, 35, 40,000, you've got 60,000 left over. If you're at that 100,000 mark, you can make an offer to some name actors or to some recognizable talent. They don't have to be big names, obviously, but you might be able to get them in for really the benchmark. You want them 15 to 20 minutes of screen time. So you basically hire them for 2 or 3 days and you shoot all their scenes back to back so that you get all that screen time. If you get to that mark, then you can be looking at anywhere from 50 to 150,000 just on your North American MG, and then you're a happy camper. So at that point, your investors are getting their 20% back, and then they're getting 50% of the remaining 30,000 in that instance. If you have 150K, 120 goes back to your investors, and then 30,000 is split between the investor pool and the producer pool. I hope that explains it. If not, ask more questions in the comments. Somebody will answer them. And until next time, aloha.